So, with the Elton John biopic coming out this week, I thought it'd be a good time to tackle something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and that's the true story behind Elton John and Axl Rose. In order for us to really start the story, we really have to talk about GNR Lies, which came out in 1988. So, with Guns N' Roses' 1988 release GNR Lies, there was the song One in a Million that caused a lot of controversy because there was lyrics that some people felt were insulting to minority groups. And the band got a lot of backlash. They got threats from people. The media was criticizing them a lot as well. And this wasn't something that was short-lived. This is something that would follow them for the next 4 or 5 years throughout their career. But it was also around this time that Axl started to talk about his love of Elton John and the influence that Elton John had on him as a musician. And here's what he had to say at that time.
I was way influenced by Elton John. I got all his sheet music as a kid and everything, and figured, wow, this stuff is pretty technical. I can't play it, but I'll learn how to fake it real good. So it's like, instead of doing like, 5-fingered things on the left hand, I learned how to do octaves killer. That's a lot easier.
Now, Axl's given other interviews where he's talked at great lengths about how much Elton John has really influenced him. And he had this to say in one interview. He said that he loved Benny and the Jets from the 1973 Elton John double album, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. And Axl said he was also such a great fan of Elton's lyricist Bernie Taupin. He said so much so that he'd love to be able to interview Taupin about his lyrics. Interestingly enough, when Taupin was later asked about his opinion on Axl's own lyrics, he claimed he was an admirer, particularly of the lyrics to Sweet Child of Mine. So in one interview, Axl gushed about John, saying Elton is just the baddest. There's nobody badder when it comes to attacking the piano and using it in a rock sense. I mean, you're going to tell me that Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, or Grow Some Funk of Your Own, or Ballad of the Well-Known Gun, or Somebody Saved My Life Tonight, and things like that ain't heavy songs? There's no way. Those guys wrote 7 number-one albums in the US from like 72 to 75, and Bernie Taupin was only 25 years old, writing off the top of his head, writing albums in 2 hours, and the guy's vocabulary and education, he just shook his head in awe. It was so amazing that they decided to go into rock and roll together rather than go classical or whatever. And they blended all these different styles. Amazing, said Axl. And Benny and the Jets, with the ambience and sound of the way it was recorded, made me want the stage. That's the song that made me want the stage because it made me think about the concert and being on stage and the way it would sound in a room. Plus, it reminded me of the glam scene that was going on around then in America and the clubs I would read about in the old Cream magazine. I discovered the guys playing 10 fingers of the weirdest chords in the world, It's like, what made him think to hit this combination of 5 notes that makes this initial sound? It's not like a major note. It's all these weird combinations. He just pulls that stuff off that nobody else does. Now, along with Billy Joel, Axl also said that Elton was the major influence on his songwriting style. He said, I've played piano in a style influenced by Elton John and Billy Joel, but it's minimalistic. I know what I can and I can't do, so I aim it really carefully. But it's basically influenced off Elton John's attack and his singing. If you want to learn how to sing all different styles, try singing like Elton John, anything from the blues on it. It amazes me that radio in America doesn't give Elton John the space that they give Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, or the Stones. You don't have Elton John Hour, yet you have 400,000 people going to Central Park to see Elton John, and you're going to have sold-out tours all over the country. I just don't understand it. I haven't met a group of people that after you've played everything all night and you put on an Elton John record that don't go cool and kick back and it's like just the album's on. Anything off the first 7 or 8 albums, you put one of those on and everyone just relaxes. It makes me feel good because of the vibrations and the styles of the songs and the styles of the writings and the way they take you on so many different places on like one album. Even before GNR Lies came out, Elton John had already inspired Guns N' Roses, or at least Axl, on the song My Michelle, which came out on Appetite for Destruction. And Elton John is probably far from the first artist you would think of while listening to Appetite for Destruction, but his classic song, Your Song, played a key role in the composition of My Michelle. So John's romantic ballad offered the early spark for the 7th song off the record and offers a surprising connection. The line, your daddy works in porno now that mommy's not around. She used to love her heroin, but now she's underground. That's a pretty far cry from the flowery sentiments expressed in Bernie Taupin's lyrics for Your Song, but frontman Axl Rose didn't really have John in mind when he penned the lyrics. It's just that John's song happened to be on the radio when a female friend of the band told Rose she'd always wanted somebody to write a song about her. And that friend was a woman named Michelle Young. So she gave an interview in 2014 where she said, "We were driving to a show," referring to her and Axel, "and that song came on. And I was like, oh, that's such a beautiful song. I wish somebody would write a song like that about me," laughed Michelle Young. And then lo and behold came my song. Now, according to the book Last of the Giants by Mick Wall, at one of the 4 shows that Guns N' Roses opened for the Rolling Stones in October of '89, Elton John hadn't even met Axl at that point, but Elton decided to send flowers to Axl's dressing room after the first show with the Stones. Yeah, it was great. He sent those flowers in a note. He didn't mean it against the Stones. It was meant towards the press and anybody else who was against Guns N' Roses. It said, "Don't let the bastards grind you down. I hate them all too. Sincerely, Elton John." That was just the greatest, told one of Guns N' Roses' managers at the time. Even the band's song November Rain was heavily influenced by Elton John, as Matt Sorum told in this 1991 interview with MTV News.
But anyway, Axl said, hey, we have a tune that's sort of, like Nigel Olsson type drum style, like Elton John's old drummer. That's no problem because I have all those Elton John albums. I love Elton John. Yeah. So I knew right what to do with it. So it wasn't really a problem for me.
So April 1992, the Freddie Mercury tribute show is going on, and Elton John and Axl actually join each other on stage and do Bohemian Rhapsody with one another. And there's 2 different stories of how these guys actually met. So this was the first time that Elton and Axl met for the first time. And Joe Elliott of Def Leppard, who was also at the tribute show, told one story, and Axl told his own version of meeting Elton for the first time. Here's what Joe Elliott had to say. Now, according to Def Leppard's Joe Elliott, Axl was in the room next to us. Elton told us he knocked on his door, and Axl's big security guy said Axl's sleeping. And Elton said, well, I'm doing a duet with him in 4 hours, and the guy shrugged his shoulders and shut the door in Elton's face. So Elton comes in our dressing room and says, what the F's wrong with that guy? Elton had a little rant and a cup of tea, then he took off. Although this seems to differ from Axl's account of actually rehearsing with Elton, which he stated on Eddie Trunk's show from 2006.
At the Freddie Mercury tribute, you sang with Elton John. Yeah. And it was obvious that you were a huge Elton John fan, just from the stuff that you've been doing. How cool was that for you to play with him in front of so many people?
That was amazing, and I didn't know they were going to do that pyro though, and that was really amazing and really fun. But it was pretty intense because meeting Elton came to my room and he sits down on his couch and we start talking about the song, and Elton is like sitting there and he's getting more tense, and he's turning really red and stuff. And because what's going on in his head is like he doesn't know me, right. And and this is a big age thing, and he's dealing with people telling him different stories about me and homophobic or whatever, and 1 in a million and everything, and he's we're trying to talk, but he's getting more tense, and finally he goes, "I'm a gay man." Okay. And I went, cool. So when we hit the bridge, the song, it's like, and then we were fine. It's like,
once he told you he was a gay man, then it was okay.
And I was like, peace. I don't have a problem. It's like, okay. So then he was like, okay, all right.
And then I remember when you came out on stage with him, he kind of looked at the camera and went, he's cool. I like him. He's a good guy.
And we've got along, ever since.
We got to go see Lestat.
I just saw him a little while ago, so he was
Have
great.
you seen the new play?
And then several months later at the MTV Video Music Awards, Elton John and Axl would play on the same stage together to the song November Rain. Even during the band's tour of Europe in 1992, Axl found some time to go check out an Elton John show with Versace. And he talked a bit about possibly modeling for the clothing line down the road and how much he loves Guns N' Roses. Here's what he had to tell Kurt Loder in a 1992 interview.
It's on a modeling show.
Versace is just huge Guns N' Roses head.
Really?
He loves Guns N' Roses. His fashion shows are, the majority of music is Guns N' Roses. He's just really, really into Guns N' Roses. And I went to Elton John show there with him. And we got along great. He wants me to do a fashion show.
Are you going to do it?
I think so. I don't know.
Will this involve like modeling or something?
I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Fast forward to January of '94, Guns N' Roses have been off the road for about 5 or 6 months. The Spaghetti Incident came out to really little fanfare, and it's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ceremony, and Axl inducts Elton John. And here's what Axl had to say about inducting Elton and how he took the opportunity to also induct Bernie Taupin, who is the main songwriter out of the duo.
I think that it depends on the song, but yet I've always felt that way. I mean, Bernie Taupin is my favorite lyricist, and when Elton asked me to induct him into the Rock and Roll Hall of took it on myself to induct him and Bernie as a writing pair. And it's my understanding it's the only award Bernie has ever gotten. You know, and he was pretty happy.
So that concludes today's video. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are, and if you guys are going to go see the Elton John biopic, let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you guys have a good one. Take care.